Officer Han Tae-ri stood at her window on the 157th floor of the new Neo-Seoul Police Department. The morning sun painted the city's towering buildings in shades of gold and pink. She watched as flying vehicles zoomed past, their anti-gravity engines humming quietly in the early morning air. The year was 2157, and Earth had changed so much since the aliens arrived 50 years ago. Tae-ri touched the small metal disc behind her right ear, her neural interface that connected her to the city's vast network. The device was cool against her fingers, a constant reminder of how different she was from the pure humans who still lived in the old districts. Most police officers had these implants now. The aliens said they helped keep order and peace. A soft chime sounded in her head. "Officer Han." Captain Kim Do-ha's voice came through clearly. "Please report to my office immediately." "Yes, Captain," she replied, turning away from the window. Her boots made no sound on the floor as she walked. That was another upgrade. Sound-dampening technology in her uniform. The police station looked more like a luxury hotel inside, with its clean white walls and floating holographic screens. Other officers nodded to Tae-ri as she passed. Some had visible cybernetic enhancements. Glowing eyes, metallic skin patches, or extra finger joints for better weapon handling. She kept her own modifications minimal, just the required ones for her job. Captain Kim's office door slid open silently as she approached. The captain sat behind his desk, his dark eyes fixed on a holographic display that Tae-ri couldn't see from her angle. He looked tired, which was unusual for someone with sleep regulation implants. "Sit down, Officer Han," he said, waving at the chair across from him. As Tae-ri sat, she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. Another unusual sign. "We have a sensitive case," he began, his voice low. "It comes directly from the Oversight Committee." He paused, glancing at his office door as if checking for listeners. "They want us to arrest someone in the last human district." Tae-ri's heart beat faster. The last human district was special, one of the few places where unmodified humans could live without pressure to accept alien technology. It was protected by old laws and treaties. The police rarely went there. "The suspect is Rose Williams," Captain Kim continued, bringing up a hologram between them. The image showed an elderly black woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She sat in a rocking chair on a small porch, smiling at whoever had taken the picture. Age 98. She lives at 42 Memory Lane in the district. "Sir," Tae-ri said carefully, "what is her crime?" The captain's face tightened. "The official charge is possession of illegal human enhancement technology." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They claim she's hiding forbidden tech that extends human life without approved modifications." Tae-ri stared at the hologram. Rose Williams didn't look like someone hiding illegal technology. She looked like someone's grandmother, peaceful and natural. "Sir, this doesn't make sense," Tae-ri said. "The last human district is protected. We need special permission to." "We have it," Captain Kim cut her off, sending a document to her neural interface. The arrest warrant appeared in her mind's eye, complete with all the required signatures and alien approval codes. "You'll lead the arrest team. Tomorrow morning, 600 hours. Tae-ri felt cold despite her temperature-regulated uniform. "Yes, sir," she said, standing up. As she reached the door, the captain spoke again. "Officer Han." She turned back. "Be careful with this one. Something isn't right." She nodded and left his office, her mind racing. In her 15 years on the force, she'd never arrested someone from the last human district. The place was special, a reminder of what humans used to be before the aliens came with their gifts of technology and longer life. Back at her desk, Tae-ri studied Rose Williams' file. The woman had lived in the same small house for 60 years. She had no criminal record. Her neighbors described her as kind and quiet. She baked cookies for children and grew real flowers in her garden, not the genetic modifications that bloomed year-round in the rest of the city. The strangest part was her age. At 98, Rose was much older than most unmodified humans could live. The average lifespan outside the last human district was now 150 years, but that was with extensive alien modifications. Pure humans usually lived to around 85 at most. Tayri spent the rest of the day preparing for the arrest. She chose her team carefully. Officers with minimal visible modifications who could move quietly and follow orders without question. They would need to be careful in the last human district. The residents there didn't trust modified humans, and any show of force could cause problems. That night, Tayri couldn't sleep despite her sleep regulation implant's best efforts. She kept seeing Rose Williams' smiling face in her mind. Why would the aliens care about one old woman? What kind of illegal technology could she possibly have? Morning came too quickly. Tayri met her team in the garage where their vehicle waited. An old-style ground car instead of their usual flying units. They wanted to blend in as much as possible in the last human district. The drive through New Neo-Seoul was like traveling backward through time. The gleaming towers and floating gardens of the main city gave way to shorter buildings made of brick and concrete. The streets became narrower, with real trees growing along them instead of the engineered plants that cleaned the air in other districts. When they reached Memory Lane, the sun was just rising. The street looked like something from an old movie. Small houses with porches, actual grass lawns, and birds singing in unprogrammed patterns. A few early risers stopped to stare at the police car. News would spread fast. Rose Williams' house was small and blue, with white trim and real roses growing in the front garden. Tayri led her team up the wooden steps of the porch. The boards creaked under their feet. Natural wood, not the silent synthetic materials used elsewhere. Before Tayri could knock, the door opened. Rose Williams stood there, smaller in person than her hologram had suggested. She wore a simple blue dress and held a cup of tea in her wrinkled hands. Her eyes were clear and sharp, showing no fear at the sight of police officers on her porch. "I've been expecting you," Rose said, her voice strong and steady. "Would you like some tea before you arrest me?" Tayri blinked in surprise. This wasn't how arrests usually went. Her neural interface suggested several response protocols, but she ignored them. "Ma'am," she said, "how did you know we were coming?" Rose smiled, the skin around her eyes crinkling. "News travels fast here, dear, and I'm not as out of touch as they think." She stepped back, holding the door open. "Please come in. Let's do this properly." Tayri hesitated, then nodded to her team to wait outside. She followed Rose into the house, immediately noticing the absence of any technology. No screens, no hovering lights, no environmental controls. Just furniture made of real wood, cloth curtains moving in the breeze from open windows, and the smell of fresh-baked bread. Rose led her to a small kitchen and poured another cup of tea. "Sit," she said, pointing to a chair at the wooden table. "You have questions. I can see them in your eyes. The real ones, not that interface they put in your head." Tayri sat, wrapping her hands around the warm teacup. It was real ceramic, not the self-heating cups used in the city. "Mrs. Williams," she began, "you're charged with possessing illegal human enhancement technology. But looking around your home, you see no technology at all." Rose finished for her. She sat across from Tayri, still smiling. "That's because I don't have any. Never needed it. Never wanted it." "But you're 98 years old," Tayri said, "without modifications." "Without modifications, humans can live long, healthy lives," Rose said firmly. "We did it before the aliens came. Some of us still do." She took a sip of tea. "That's what frightens them, you know. They want everyone to think we need their technology, their improvements. But some of us prove otherwise." Tayri's neural interface was recording everything, standard procedure for arrests. But something made her reach up and touch the disc behind her ear, temporarily pausing the recording. "Are you saying the aliens lied about human lifespans?" Rose's eyes sparkled. "I'm saying that humanity was on its own path before they arrived. We were evolving, improving naturally. Some of us, like me, already carried genes for longevity. The aliens didn't give us longer lives. They just changed how we got them. The implications of this made Tyree's head spin. If Rose was telling the truth, why are they arresting you now? After all these years? Because others are starting to ask questions, Rose said. Young people with modifications are wondering why they needed them in the first place. And some of us old-timers. She gestured to herself. We're living proof that there might be another way. A shout from outside interrupted them. Tyree stood quickly, her hand going to her weapon. Rose remained calm, taking another sip of tea. Right on time, the old woman said. You might want to go see what that's about, dear. Things are about to get interesting. Tyree hurried to the front door, her mind racing with questions. What she saw on the porch made her stop dead in her tracks. Her team was backing away from a large figure approaching the house, a man whose face every human knew, even more than a century after his prime. Mike Tyson was walking up Rose Williams' garden path, and he didn't look happy about finding police at her door. Lee Jae-won worked in her underground lab, far beneath the busy streets of New Neo-Seoul. The room was filled with old computers and paper books, technology the aliens couldn't track. Her fingers moved quickly across a real keyboard, typing up her latest findings about Rose Williams' genetic code. This is amazing, she whispered to herself, looking at the test results on her screen. The old-style monitor showed rows of DNA patterns that proved what she had suspected for years. Humans had started to evolve naturally longer lives before the aliens arrived. Rose wasn't using any secret technology. She was proof that humans could live longer without alien help. Jae-won heard footsteps coming down the concrete stairs to her lab. She didn't worry. Only resistance members knew about this place. The lab was hidden in an old subway station that the aliens thought was destroyed during the First Contact Wars. Park Min-ho appeared at the door, breathing hard from running down the stairs. His face was red with excitement. Jae-won, they're making their move. The police went to arrest Rose this morning. Jae-won stood up so quickly her chair fell over. What? We thought we had more time. She grabbed a small disk from her desk. It held all her research about natural human evolution. Did you contact him? Min-ho nodded, smiling. Mike is already on his way there. He woke up from cryo sleep an hour ago, and his vitals are perfect. He helped Jae-won gather her equipment. But we need to hurry. Captain Kim says the aliens are watching Rose's house closely. They rushed to pack their most important tools and research. Ji-won remembered the day she first met Mike Tyson. 5 years ago. She had found records of his secret cryopreservation from the 2030s. The famous boxer had agreed to be frozen using early human technology, not alien tech. Now he was their greatest hope, proof that even old human science could keep someone young and strong. The transport is ready, Min-ho said, pointing to his watch, an old mechanical one that didn't connect to any networks. We have exactly 20 minutes before the alien satellites pass over this area again. They climbed into their vehicle, hidden in another part of the old subway tunnel. It looked like a normal delivery truck on the outside, but inside it was filled with resistance equipment. As Min-ho drove through the secret tunnel, Jae-won checked the data on her tablet one more time. The aliens are scared, she said, looking at her research. Rose's DNA shows that humans were naturally developing genes for longer life. In a few hundred years, we might have lived as long as we do now with their technology, but without losing our independence. Min-ho turned the truck onto a ramp that would take them to the surface. That's why they came when they did, isn't it? They saw we were growing stronger on our own. Yes, Jae-won said quietly. They offered us their technology before we could develop our own, made us dependent on them. But they didn't know about people like Rose, or that we had already preserved someone like Mike Tyson. The truck emerged from the tunnel into early morning sunlight. They were in the last human district now. Ji-won looked out the window at the simple houses and real trees. This place always made her feel peaceful. It reminded her of growing up in her grandmother's house, before the aliens changed everything. They parked a block away from Rose's house. Through the trees, they could see police officers standing on her porch. A crowd of locals had gathered on the street, watching quietly, and walking up the garden path was Mike Tyson himself. "Look at him," Minho whispered with pride. The cryo-sleep worked perfectly. Mike looked exactly like he had in his prime. He walked with the same power and confidence that had made him famous. He wore simple clothes, jeans, and a black t-shirt, but everyone knew who he was. The police officers on Rose's porch stepped back as he approached. Jai-Won and Minho got out of the truck, carrying their equipment. They walked closer, staying behind the crowd. Through a gap between people, Jai-Won could see Officer Han Tae-ri come out of Rose's house. The police officer looked confused and uncertain. "Remember," Jai-Won whispered to Minho, "Captain Kim said she might help us. She's not like the other officers who blindly follow alien orders." They watched as Mike stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. His voice carried clearly across the quiet street. "I heard you're trying to arrest my friend Rose," he said to the officers. "We need to talk about that." Officer Han stepped forward. "Mr. Tyson, this is a legal arrest with proper warrants. Please don't interfere." Mike smiled, but his eyes were serious. "Those warrants are based on lies. Your alien bosses know that Rose isn't hiding any technology. They're afraid of what she represents, human potential without their help." Jai-Won saw her chance. She stepped forward from the crowd, holding up her research disc. "Officer Han," she called out, "I'm Dr. Lee Jai-Won. I can prove what Mr. Tyson is saying." The police officer turned to look at her. Ji-Won could see the neural interface disc behind her ear, but something in Tae-ri's eyes looked doubtful, questioning. She continued speaking, her voice stronger now. "The aliens lied to us about human evolution. They saw we were developing naturally longer lives, and they rushed to offer us their technology before we could do it on our own." She held up her disc. "I have proof. Rose's genetic code, records from before first contact, everything." The crowd murmured with interest. More people were arriving, drawn by the scene on Rose's porch. Minho moved to stand beside Jai-Won, ready to protect the research if needed. Officer Han looked at her team, then back at Rose, who had come to stand in her doorway. The old woman was still holding her teacup, seeming completely calm. "Even if what you're saying is true," Tae-ri said slowly, "I have orders. The warrant." "The warrant is fake," came a new voice. Captain Kim Do-ha stepped out from behind a tree. He walked toward the porch, holding up his police badge. "I signed it under pressure, but I've been working with the resistance for months. The aliens are lying to all of us." Jai-Won felt hope rising in her chest. This was working better than they had planned. She watched Captain Kim climb the porch steps and stand next to Officer Han. "The arrest warrant," he said loudly so everyone could hear, "claims Rose Williams has illegal technology. But look at her house. No tech anywhere. Look at her garden. Real flowers growing naturally. She's lived 98 years without a single alien modification." He turned to face the crowd. "The aliens don't want you to know this, but humans were evolving on our own. Dr. Lee has proof. Mike Tyson is proof too, preserved by human technology, not alien tech. We didn't need their help, and they knew it." Officer Han's hand moved away from her weapon. She looked at Rose, then at Mike Tyson, and finally at Jai-Won with her disc of evidence. "If this is true," she said, "why are you telling us now?" "Because they're getting desperate," Jai-Won answered, walking closer to the porch. "More people are asking questions. Some are refusing modifications. The aliens are losing control, so they're trying to eliminate proof that we can live without them." Rose spoke up then, her voice carrying clearly despite her age. "I'm not the only one," she said. "There are others like me around the world, people who lived long lives naturally. The aliens have been arresting us one by one, making us disappear." The crowd had grown larger. People were recording everything on old-style cameras that didn't connect to alien networks. Jo1 saw neighbors passing her research disk from person to person, copying its contents. "So what do we do?" Officer Han asked, looking at her captain. Captain Kim smiled. "First, we don't arrest Rose. Then, we start spreading the truth. Dr. Lee's research, Mike Tyson's preservation, Rose's natural longevity. People need to know they have a choice." Jae-won watched as Officer Han reached up and touched her neural interface. For a moment, everyone was quiet, waiting. Then she pulled the disc off her skin, dropping it onto the porch. "I choose to know the truth," she said. Mike Tyson opened his eyes slowly. The cryo chamber's lid was already open, and warm air touched his face. His body felt strong, just like it had when he went to sleep in 2031. He remembered that day clearly. The scientists explaining how their new freezing technology might save him for a future that needed him. Park Min-ho stood next to the chamber, checking numbers on an old-style medical screen. "Everything looks perfect, Mr. Tyson," he said with a smile. "Your heart rate is normal. Blood pressure is good. The old human technology worked exactly as it should." Mike sat up carefully, but his muscles worked fine. He looked around the secret room built deep under the old Madison Square Garden. The place looked like a mix between a hospital and a museum. Old boxing posters hung on the walls. His championship belts sat in a glass case nearby. "How long was I asleep?" Mike asked, though he already knew the answer. They had woken him up briefly 6 months ago to explain everything. About the aliens, their technology, and why he needed to stay frozen a bit longer. 126 years, Min-ho answered. "But your body is exactly as it was when you went to sleep. You're still in your prime, just like we hoped." Mike stood up and walked to a mirror on the wall. His face looked the same as it had in 2031. He made a fist. His hands were still strong, still ready for a fight. But this time, he wasn't fighting for a boxing title. He was fighting for human independence. "Tell me about Rose again," he said, starting to get dressed in the clothes Min-ho had brought. "Why are they moving against her now?" Min-ho pulled up some papers. They didn't use digital files for important information anymore. "Rose Williams is 98 years old, but she's never had any alien modifications. She's living proof that humans were developing longer lifespans naturally." He showed Mike some medical charts. "The aliens are scared because more people are noticing. They're wondering why they need alien technology if humans like Rose can live so long without it." Mike nodded, pulling on a black t-shirt. "And the police are going to arrest her this morning." "Yes, but Captain Kim is on our side. He's been helping the resistance. He had to sign the arrest warrant, but he made sure Officer Han Tae-ri would lead the arrest team. She's different from other officers. She asks questions, thinks for herself." Mike looked at his boxing gloves in their glass case. He had worn those when he was heavyweight champion of the world. Now the whole world needed a different kind of champion. "The aliens think they helped us," he said, remembering what they had told him 6 months ago. "They came to Earth offering longer lives, better technology, and a place in their galactic community. But really, they just wanted to control us." Min-ho packed some medical equipment into a bag. "They saw humans were getting stronger and smarter on our own. Your cryopreservation proves we were developing advanced technology. Rose's natural long life proves we were evolving without help. They rushed to Earth to make us dependent on them before we could grow too powerful." They walked through a hidden door and down a long tunnel. The resistance had built these passages under the city years ago, connecting important places like the garden to safe houses and secret labs. Dr. Lee found more proof in Rose's genetic code. Min-ho continued as they walked. Humans were naturally developing genes for longer life, better health, and maybe even stronger minds. The aliens saw this happening and decided to interfere. They reached a small garage where an old truck waited. It looked normal on the outside, but inside it had special engines and armor. As they got in, Mike thought about everything that had changed while he slept. The New York he remembered was gone, replaced by tall buildings that floated in the air. Most humans now had computer parts in their bodies. The aliens said these changes made life better, but they also made humans easy to control. Rose's house is in the last human district, Minho said as he drove the truck through the tunnel. It's one of the few places left where people live without alien technology. The police rarely go there, but today they're breaking that rule. Mike watched through the truck's window as they came out of the tunnel into daylight. The last human district looked more like the world he remembered. Normal houses, real trees, people walking dogs and talking to neighbors. No floating cars or glowing signs in the air. They parked the truck, and Mike could see police officers standing on Rose's porch. A crowd had gathered to watch. He saw Dr. Lee in the crowd, holding something important, probably her research about human evolution. "Ready?" Minho asked, checking his watch. Mike nodded, opening the truck door. As he walked toward Rose's house, people in the crowd began to whisper. They recognized him. Even after all these years, people still knew Mike Tyson's face. The police officers on the porch stepped back when they saw him coming. Mike smiled a little at that. Some things hadn't changed. He still knew how to make an entrance. He stopped at the bottom of Rose's porch steps. Officer Han Tae-ri stood at the top, looking uncertain. Mike could see the alien technology disc behind her ear, but her eyes were human, full of questions. "I heard you're trying to arrest my friend Rose," he said clearly. "We need to talk about that." The officer tried to sound confident. "Mr. Tyson, this is a legal arrest with proper warrants. Please don't interfere." Mike kept his smile, but made his voice serious. "Those warrants are based on lies. Your alien bosses know that Rose isn't hiding any technology. They're afraid of what she represents, human potential without their help." He watched as Dr. Lee stepped forward from the crowd, holding up her research. As she explained about human evolution and alien lies, Mike saw understanding begin to show on Officer Han's face. Everything was happening as they had planned. Captain Kim appeared at the right moment. The crowd grew larger. People started sharing Dr. Lee's research. And finally, Officer Han made her choice, removing her neural interface. Mike looked up at Rose, still standing calmly in her doorway. She reminded him of his grandmother, strong, wise, and unafraid. She was living history, just like him. They were both proof that humanity was stronger than the aliens wanted anyone to believe. "The real fight starts now," he said quietly to Minho, who had come to stand beside him. "Are the others ready?" Minho nodded. "Safe houses are prepared all over the city. Resistance members are ready to move Rose and the research to a secure location. And there are more people like her coming forward, other naturally long-lived humans who've been hiding." "Good," Mike said, "because once the aliens realize what's happening here, they're going to react. And we need to be ready." As if to prove his words, they heard a loud sound from above. Looking up, they saw alien ships appearing in the sky over the last human district. The aliens had noticed that Officer Han had removed her neural interface. They were coming to investigate. Mike Tyson cracked his knuckles and smiled. He had won his first heavyweight championship when everyone thought he was too young. He had survived being frozen for over a century when everyone thought it was impossible. Now he was ready to help humanity win its freedom when everyone thought the aliens were unbeatable. "Time to show them what natural human strength looks like," he said. The alien ships hung in the air above Rose's house like dark silver clouds. Their engines made no sound, but everyone could feel a slight pressure in their ears. The morning sun reflected off their smooth surfaces, making them shine. Officer Han Tae-ri stood on Rose's porch, holding her removed neural interface in her hand. Her head felt clearer now, like waking up from a long dream. She looked at the small metal disc that had connected her to the alien network for so many years. It seemed so small to have had such power over her. "They're scanning the area," Captain Kim said, checking an old-style radiation meter, "looking for their lost connection to you. Tyree. And probably trying to find out how many other humans here are free of their technology. Mike Tyson moved to stand in front of Rose, who was still calmly drinking her tea in the doorway. Dr. Lee and Park Min-ho joined them on the porch, carrying their research materials. The crowd in the street had grown larger, but nobody ran away when the alien ships appeared. "What happens now?" Tyree asked, looking at her captain. "I've never seen them respond so quickly to a disconnection before." "Because this isn't just about one officer removing their interface," Dr. Lee explained. She held up her research disk. "They know we have proof here. Proof that humans were evolving naturally before they came. Proof that we don't need their technology." A bright light suddenly shone down from one of the ships, creating a circle on the street in front of Rose's house. The air shimmered, and 3 alien figures appeared. They were tall and looked almost human, except their skin had a slight silver shine, and their eyes were too large. The alien in the middle stepped forward. Its voice came from a small device at its throat, translating its thoughts into human speech. "This is an unauthorized gathering," it said. "All modified humans must return to their assigned districts. All unmodified humans must remain in their homes." Mike Tyson walked down the porch steps. Even the aliens seemed to pause at the sight of him, a legend from human history, standing in the flesh before them. "We're not following your orders anymore," he said clearly. "We know the truth about why you came to Earth." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "We came to help humanity advance, to share our technology and knowledge, to give you longer, better lives." "No," Rose said, speaking up from her doorway. She walked down the steps to stand beside Mike, looking very small next to him, but just as strong. "You came because you were afraid. Afraid of what we were becoming on our own." Dr. Lee stepped forward, holding up her research. "I can prove it. Your own genetic scans of Rose show that humans were naturally developing longer lifespans. We didn't need your help. You interfered with our evolution because you were scared of our potential." The aliens looked at each other, communicating silently. The crowd watched, holding their breath. Then the middle alien spoke again. "Your understanding is incomplete. We offered improvements, protection, a place in the galactic community. You offered a beautiful cage," Captain Kim said. He pulled out an old data pad. "I've been collecting evidence for years. Reports of humans who refused modifications disappearing. Secret tests on naturally long-lived people like Rose. Orders to suppress information about human achievements before your arrival." Tyree felt anger growing inside her. All her years as a police officer, thinking she was helping keep order, she had really been helping keep humans under control. She thought about all the arrests she had made, all the time she had followed alien orders without questioning them. The alien leader's voice became harder. "This discussion is pointless. Officer Han, replace your interface. The rest of you, disperse. Rose Williams, you will come with us for testing." "No," Mike said simply. "Rose isn't going anywhere. And Officer Han isn't putting that interface back in." He turned to face the crowd. "None of us are accepting your control anymore." The aliens raised their hands, and people gasped as small devices appeared in their palms, some kind of weapons. But before they could use them, something remarkable happened. All through the crowd, people began removing their neural interfaces. The small discs fell to the ground one by one. Parents helped their children take them off. Old people who had worn them for decades pulled them free. Each person who removed their interface stood straighter, their eyes clearer. The aliens stepped back, seeming unsure for the first time. Their weapons disappeared back into their hands. The middle one spoke again, but its voice translator couldn't hide a note of concern. "This is unwise. Without our technology, your lives will be shorter, more difficult. You will lose your place in the galactic community. Better a short life lived free," Rose said, "than a long one lived under control." She smiled at the aliens. "But that's not true anyway, is it? I'm 98 years old without any of your technology. Humans can live long, healthy lives on our own. We were already on that path when you arrived. Dr. Lee held up her research again. The truth is spreading across the city right now. Through old networks you can't control. Through paper and word of mouth. People are learning that humanity was growing stronger before you came. That people like Rose and Mike Tyson prove we don't need your help. The alien ships above them moved closer together, their lights growing brighter. More aliens appeared on the street, forming a circle around the crowd. But the humans didn't move. They stood their ground, interfaces discarded on the street around them. Tae-Ree looked at her captain, then at Mike Tyson and Rose. She saw Dr. Lee sharing her research with more people in the crowd. She watched Minho helping others remove their interfaces safely. This was what real police work should be, protecting people's freedom to choose their own path. She dropped her interface on the ground and stepped on it, crushing the alien technology under her boot. The sound seemed to echo in the quiet street. All around her, others did the same thing, until the ground was covered with broken pieces of alien control devices. The alien leader's voice came again, but this time it seemed to be speaking to someone else. Situation requires intervention. Humans showing dangerous levels of independence, requesting permission to begin emergency protocols. Mike Tyson cracked his knuckles, the sound making some of the aliens step back. You mean you want permission to force us back under control? He shook his head. Not happening. Humanity is taking back its independence, starting right here, right now. The ships above began to hum louder. More bright lights appeared, shining down on the crowd. But still, nobody ran. Humans without any modifications stood shoulder to shoulder with those who had just removed their interfaces. They all faced the aliens together, ready for whatever came next. Rose's quiet voice carried clearly through the tense silence. You can't stop this now, she told the aliens. The truth is out. Humans are remembering who we really are, who we were becoming before you interfered. You can either accept that we're choosing our own path forward, or we show you exactly how strong humanity can be. Mike finished for her, stepping forward to face the alien leader directly. Your choice. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky over the last human district. The alien ships cast dark shadows on the ground, but the shadows couldn't hide the broken neural interfaces scattered across the street. Each broken piece of alien technology represented a human choosing freedom over control. Park Min-ho worked quickly at an old laptop computer in the back of their truck. His fingers moved fast over the keyboard as he connected to the Resistance's hidden network. The news is spreading, he called out to the others. All over the city, people are removing their interfaces. The aliens can't stop the information from getting out. Dr. Lee Jae-won stood next to Rose Williams on the porch, protecting their precious research data. She watched as more people arrived at the scene. Some came running from nearby streets. Others drove old cars that didn't need alien technology to work. Everyone who came saw the aliens facing off against Mike Tyson and the growing crowd of free humans. Their emergency protocols are failing, Captain Kim said, looking at his old-style scanner. They expected to control this situation with their technology, but they can't connect to anyone who removed their interface. They're losing their power over us minute by minute. The alien leader spoke again, its voice translator showing signs of stress. This rebellion must end. Your species is not ready for independence. You need our guidance, our protection. We never needed either, Mike Tyson interrupted. He stood tall in front of the aliens, his presence giving courage to everyone around him. Humanity was doing just fine before you came. We were growing, learning, evolving. You didn't come to help us. You came to stop us from becoming too strong. More alien ships appeared in the sky, their engines creating a deep humming sound that made the ground shake slightly. But for every new ship that appeared, more humans arrived to join the crowd. People brought old cameras to record everything. They carried paper copies of Dr. Lee's research, passing them from hand to hand. Officer Han Tae-Ree walked down the porch steps to stand beside Mike. Without her neural interface, she felt strange but stronger. I enforced your laws for 15 years. she said to the aliens. "I thought I was helping keep order. But really, I was helping you keep us under control. Not anymore." The alien leader's large eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the consequences. Without our technology, without our protection." "We understand perfectly," Rose said, walking down to join Mike and Terry. Even though she was much smaller than the aliens, her voice was strong and clear. "I understand that I lived 98 years without any of your help. I understand that humans were developing longer lives naturally before you interfered. And now, everyone else understands too." Dr. Lee stepped forward, holding up her research data. "Your own genetic scans prove it. Humans were evolving. Our lifespans were increasing. Our minds were growing stronger. You saw our potential and decided to interfere before we could reach it on our own." Min Ho called out from his computer, reports coming in from other cities. "The resistance is spreading the truth everywhere. London, Tokyo, Nairobi, Sydney. People are waking up. They're removing their interfaces. The aliens are losing control worldwide." The alien ships above them began to move in a threatening pattern. Their lights grew brighter, and strange sounds filled the air. The alien leader raised its hands, and more weapons appeared. "This defiance cannot be allowed. For your own protection, we will re-establish control. Those who resist will be—" A loud cracking sound interrupted the alien's threat. Everyone turned to look. Mike Tyson had picked up one of the neural interfaces from the ground and crushed it to powder it in his hand. The alien leader actually stepped back, seeing such a clear rejection of their power. "You'll re-establish nothing," Mike said calmly, letting the crushed interface dust fall to the ground. "Humanity is choosing its own path now. You can either accept that and deal with us as equals, or you can leave Earth entirely. Those are your only choices." Suddenly, all the alien ship's lights went dark. The humming stopped. The weapons in the aliens' hands disappeared. Everyone looked around in confusion until Min Ho shouted from his truck. "It worked," he yelled excitedly. "The resistance just activated the old human defense system, the one we built before the aliens came. Their technology isn't working anymore. We're blocking their signals." The alien leader tried to speak, but its voice translator had stopped working. For the first time, the aliens looked uncertain, even afraid. They hadn't expected this level of organized resistance. They hadn't known about the old human technology that still worked, hidden, and waiting for this moment. Captain Kim stepped forward, speaking to the aliens. "We kept more of our old technology than you knew about. We had people like Mike Tyson preserved in ways you didn't understand. We had natural evolution happening that you tried to stop. But most importantly, we had the truth. And now everyone knows it." Rose walked right up to the alien leader. She was old, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "You have 2 hours to gather your people and leave the last human district," she said firmly. "By sunset, we want all alien ships gone from Earth's skies. If you choose to stay on Earth, you'll have to live like the rest of us. No special technology, no control over others, just honest cooperation." The aliens looked at each other, their large eyes blinking rapidly. Without their technology working, without their ability to control humans through the neural interfaces, they had no real power left. Finally, the alien leader nodded slowly, accepting defeat. The crowd cheered as the aliens began to disappear, teleporting back to their ships. The ship's engines came back on, but instead of attacking, they started to rise higher into the sky. Soon, they were just small dots against the blue morning sky. Then they vanished completely. Dr. Lee hugged her research materials tight. "It really happened," she said, tears in her eyes. "We really did it." Mike Tyson smiled, looking around at all the free humans. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Now we have to rebuild, show everyone how to live without alien technology, help them remember how strong humans really are." Officer Han took off her police uniform jacket, the one with alien symbols on it. "I want to help," she said. I want to make up for all the years I spent enforcing their rules. We'll all help, Captain Kim said. The Resistance has plans for this. Ways to use old human technology while we develop our own new systems. It won't be easy, but we'll do it together. Rose looked at her small house with its garden of real flowers. The aliens were right about one thing, she said thoughtfully. Life might be harder for a while without their technology, but it will be our life, our choice, our future. Min Ho closed his laptop and joined the others. Reports are still coming in. By sunset, every major city on Earth will be free. Humanity is taking back its independence, just like we planned. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, people began to clean up the street. They collected the broken neural interfaces, planning to recycle the materials for human use. Children played in Rose's garden, their laughter free and natural without any alien tech controlling their emotions. Scientists in the crowd already talked about studying Dr. Lee's research, learning how human evolution had been progressing before the aliens came. Mike Tyson stood watching it all, feeling proud. He had gone into cryo-sleep hoping to wake up in a future that needed him. Now he was here, helping humanity remember its strength and claim its freedom. He looked at Rose, who smiled back at him. They were both living proof that humans didn't need alien help to be extraordinary. What happens next? Officer Han asked, looking at all the people working together to rebuild. Rose patted her hand gently. Whatever we choose, that's the beauty of being free.